What happens when you give a bunch of beavers control over a post-apocalyptic world? You get one of the best city builders I've ever played. Now, when you think of the greats, you probably think of games like Cities Skylines, SimCity, Banished, Anno, maybe Tropico. And though I love them all, I believe that Timberborn absolutely belongs in that conversation as well. If you've never heard of it, Timberborn is a game where you manage a highly advanced civilization of beavers. Yes, beavers that have been tasked with surviving droughts and building cities that can grow in any direction. And if you think that sounds too cute to compete with the big names I mentioned earlier, don't be fooled. Timberborn is a deceptively deep and incredibly fun game to play. It's the city builder that I reach for when I just want to unwind. But every time I do, I end up hooked for hours and sometimes days. And one of the reasons for that is that even though the game is in early access, it's rock solid. The devs have been putting out regular, meaningful updates that add new mechanics, respond to community feedback, and seriously improve the replayability of the game. That's why when they reached out to me to sponsor this video, where I get to show off some of the new features from Update 7, I jumped at the opportunity. So a huge shout out to the Timberborn team for sponsoring this video. Now let's talk about what's in Update 7, because there's some seriously game-changing stuff in here. First up is 3D terrain. You can now overhang terrain blocks and place them on structures and platforms. That means that vertical farms are totally possible now. You're also able to tunnel, which opens up so many possibilities, like putting water right underneath your roads, right where it belongs. Next up is public transportation. Well, kind of. If you're playing as Folktales, you can now build ziplines, which let your beavers glide across elevation changes. And if you're playing as Iron Teeth, you now get tubeways. Tubeways are modular transport systems that move beavers and goods faster, through tight corners, up vertical climbs, underwater, and even through tunnels. As always, the update brings a host of other improvements: balance tweaks, map reworks, bug fixes, performance boosts, and UI updates, including a new layer tool that's perfect for planning your new tunnel networks. So let's jump into a city that I've been working on, and I'll show you how all these new tools work. Before I show you the city I built, I wanted to show you the map that I built it on. This is Diorama, and it's the smallest of the official maps that comes with Timberborn, and it's one of my favorites. Because it's so small, it forces you to build up, which I think is really interesting. And here's a city that I built on the Diorama map. Now, this might not be the most beautiful city in the world, but it is incredibly functional. This is completely sustainable. I could walk away from this for a month, and no beavers are going to die. There will not be a death wave, and that's because I've been really thoughtful about all of my choices. So we've got all of our living space right here, and I've carefully controlled the number of beavers that we have in the colony so that we don't overpopulate. We've got a factory district right here where every single piece of machinery and every bit of power equipment is linked together. So that means that we've got a ton of power to produce all the resources that the colony could need. Speaking of resources, we're completely maxed out. Every single storage that I put together, all of them are full. And that goes with food and water as well. We've got 2 tree farms, one right here and one at the top of the hill, a blueberry farm, and we have a whole bunch of carrots right here. Now, the problem with this build is that we're basically limited to the population that we have right now, because if I want to grow the colony at all, we don't have the food to support it. But that's where this update comes in. With this update, we should be able to push the population higher by having vertical farming. Further, with all the different elevations, we should be able to use our zip lines to zip around the map pretty quickly. And I'm hoping that with tunneling, we can do some really creative things with both power and water. Basically, I want to take the power and link up this dirt excavator that I never linked to the power network and link it up to our power plant. And I think with tunneling, we might be able to do that. I also want to green up this area right here so that it's arable. And I'm hoping that we can use tunnels to do so. So without any further ado, let's get started with our first project. We've got this dirt excavator right here, and I totally forgot to link it up to our power network. Now, if I were to do this using old methods, I'd probably have a power line that goes all the way across here and through this area, and it would really kind of muck things up. But I think that we might be able to bury this. So I'm going to unlock our new tunneling option. This takes 2,000 science, but at this point, we've got 66,000. We're totally fine. Using the new layering tool, I'm going to hold down Alt and then scroll on the scroll wheel of my mouse. And you can see that I can see the different levels of elevation. Now, I want to get to this level because I'm going to start the tunnel right here. And now we can see where this will come out. So what I'm going to do is bring this over to our power plant, just like this. Then I should be able to use the vertical power shafts to link up right here. Now, I will need to provide some sort of access into here. So I'll create a temporary staircase. And then one of the fun things is as a piece is constructed, it will immediately detonate. And that didn't take that long at all, just a couple of days. And these tunnel pieces don't really take all that many resources. You're looking at 1 explosive, 1 extract, and 6 planks. So at this point in the game, it's not all that much. Now I want to get power over here. And for this, I'm going to use the solid power shaft. And I just want to stack a bunch of these. And once this portion is complete, I'm basically going to run power shafts all the way through here. We'll run this all the way back to our excavator. And now this should be pretty straightforward. We'll just get rid of our steps here and add in our power shafts. And just like that, our excavator is completely operational. And honestly, this is really powerful. Now, in the past, we could always bury our power shafts underneath platforms and have them underneath our roads, but being able to stick them straight through a mountainside, that was not possible before, and now you absolutely can. So I can just imagine some of the factories that people have come up with this, because you can do some really interesting things. The idea to green this area up is going to be pretty straightforward. I want to capture water from the waterfall, send it through a tunnel, underneath this hill right here, underneath the road, and then out the back over here. Now, to green up all of this, we're going to need a big aquifer, we're going to need to pressurize it, and we're likely going to need to lift it once we get over here. So it's going to be kind of a big job, but it's going to be worth it in the end. But the very first thing that we need to do is create our entryways into the tunnel. So I'm going to blast our first entryway right here. Then we'll go underground and underneath our road. And then from here, we need to have another exit. And having these 2 ways into the tunnel should get this thing built really quickly. Now I'm ready to blast our entryway. And I created those so that I could add staircases down here. And this is going to take quite some time, so I'm going to queue up one more project, and that's going to be our entryway over here. Basically, we're going to step down. This right here is where the water is going to exit. So the goal is going to be to have the water pressurized to reach this level. We're eventually going to send the water this way, but let's start here to make sure that things are working before we do anything rash. Now at this point, all of our tunnels are complete, and you can see that this area right here is green. Now the whole reason for that is there's actually water at the bottom of this. It's kind of tough to see because it's nighttime, but I can actually see standing water. So as a result, near this opening, I can see that everything is green. I could plant things here. But everywhere else, I don't have that happening. And that's because the water isn't any higher than that standing water area. And if we want it to get higher, we're going to need to pressurize our waterfall. Now, the unfortunate thing is that we're about to enter a drought, but honestly, it's not the end of the world. We already have our mission. We need to make sure that the levee that we build here is taller than our exit right here. So long as that's the case, we'll have the water flow up to this area. Now, this exit right here is taller than this right here, which means that we'll also have the water spilling out right here. So with that in mind, the first thing I want to do is come up with a way to get into this area temporarily so that we don't flood everything out. And I know that this is a little bit extreme, but this is temporary. And I just want to make sure that we're protecting all of our beavers and all of our materials. Now, while this is building, we're also going to be building a structure over here. Now this levee is going to be what's going to pressurize our tunnels here. And I just need to make sure that my heights make sense. Right now, this is actually too tall, so water will start shooting up out of this hole. So I'm going to take this down one level. And now these should be the exact same height, meaning that water will discharge from here and the outlet on the side at the exact same time. Would you look at that? This entire area right here is perfectly green. Now, this whole structure is holding back water though. You see, that was part of the concern right here. But this is where our water is now exiting. And this is the really critical part of this, because all we have to do to green this entire area up is spread the water around. So I'm going to expand the size of this tunnel considerably. And basically see if having a big aquifer just like this makes this entire area green. Basically, this entire area is bright green now. We have to bring it over just a little bit more if we wanted to get the corner, but honestly, this is pretty outstanding. There's only one more thing to do with this project, and that is I want to get rid of this monstrosity, and this should be fairly straightforward as well. I'm just going to add a terrain block at the entry point here. And then I need to get rid of this piece right here, because then I can add these two terrain blocks right here. And now the moment of truth, we'll get rid of this gigantic levee. And it looks like everything is holding up here, so all of our planning has worked out perfectly. And now for our final project, and it's going to be a big one, a two-parter. I want to build a vertical farm right here. Now we're going to make this thing entirely out of dirt, and because of that, I want to build a zipline as well, because all of our soil is being stored right here. So if we build a zipline that gets us over here, we should be able to build this thing a lot faster. So let's begin with the zipline. And for the zipline, you have to build a zipline station on either end. You can have multiple of these, and if your stations are more than 30 meters apart, you have to have pylons in the middle. So I want to begin with the first station, and I'll place that right here. And then I think I'm going to add another station, maybe at the top of the hill up here. And to get up there, we're going to need that pylon that I mentioned. I'll place that right here, and you can already see that this station's happy with that. It's pointing to the pylon. So this will go to the top of the hill, and then from here, we need to get down to our dirt. So I'll build a zipline station right here. Now, I'm not 100% sure if these will be able to connect. We'll have to cross that bridge when the time comes. And it seems like it's not going to connect unless it's right here, and that's not going to work. So I'm going to put it back where I want it to be. And then to get this to work, I'll add a triple platform with a double on top. So this will be kind of a trick to build. But as long as we're able to get creative with our scaffolding, we're able to figure it out. Now the last thing that we have to do is connect all of these up. So I'll just add a connection here. And this line is obstructed, but I should be able to fix this. You can see it's the dead tree that's the problem. And without those trees, I was able to make that connection, and I can make it all the way down. That is perfect. My idea for the vertical farm is fairly straightforward. I want to blast a hole in the ground and force the water up through the center of the vertical farm. So think of it as kind of an elevator shaft, but for water. And then we're going to plug this hole right here so that rather than having the water flow out of the map, it'll flow up inside of this vertical farm. So the first thing I want to build will be my dynamite. And then all the way around that, we're going to place terrain blocks. And it was a thing of beauty seeing everyone taking the zip line. Now we should be able to just detonate this, and eventually we'll have the water come straight through the center here. So now we have a choice. We could go up one story. If we're gonna have really short crops, that's totally fine. Or we could go up two. I think that we'll grow carrots at the bottom of this, so I'm gonna be okay going up just one block. But I need supports. And there's a couple of different approaches I could take here. I like to use dirt though, because dirt transfers water. Now, if I hold down X, I can actually see the number of blocks in between this shaft here and the pillars that I'm about to add. And I've been trying to figure out the perfect pattern for this, and this is what I've come up with. So we're basically going 3 units apart. We've got our little elevator shaft right here. I wish it were centered. In fact, I might wish it were centered so much that I might actually center it. And now we're ready for the next story, and that is absolutely perfect. Now I think for this next story, we'll go a little bit taller. So I'll go up 2 blocks instead. That's not tall enough for trees, but it is tall enough for things like sunflowers. And once this thing is built, we'll plug our hole here and then get planting. And I finally completed this little tower, but now we've got to get water here. And for this, we're gonna have to plug our hole. So I'm going to demolish this and fill this in with a terrain block. Now, the moment that we do that, we start to have water overfilling right here. So I'll need to bring this down to this level and fill in this gap as well. But even with all that filled in, it's not going to be green right here. And that's because we're still below our sluices right here. So we've got to raise this up, and I'm going to build this up probably another 4 or 5 layers. You know, and I gave it some thought, and I thought that a couple of floodgates could do the trick for me. I just had to make sure that they were high enough up. It took me a couple of goes, but basically I had to make sure that the top of the floodgate was above this, and then the water would be pressurized enough to completely make this saturated. And look at that. We can now plant anywhere that we want down here, and we are about to. So at the very top here, we're gonna plant some trees. Below that, I want to have sunflowers. And I added those here because they're a little bit taller. And then underneath that, we'll go with something really short, like potatoes. Now at the bottom here, we'll have to add a forester, as well as a farmhouse. And would you look at this? We don't actually reach all the different stories of our tower, so I'll have to go back to the drawing board. Now, is this thing beautiful? No, it is not, but I think it is incredibly functional, and this is what I've been missing to be able to really pump up the population on this map, which gets me really excited. It means that I'm gonna keep playing on this because I wanna see how far I can push things. And honestly, this whole update has really changed the game for me. Being able to zip around the map as quickly as we can with the zip lines, being able to have vertical farming, tunnels, it just really changed the game. So if you own Timberborn and haven't played in a while, maybe now's the time to jump back in. And if you've been on the fence and want to check it out for yourself, I have a link to the game in the video description and in the pinned comment below. If you click on that link, it helps the channel out. So thank you so much. And that is Timberborn Update 7. And personally, I think this is a really good one. It's game changing for me. I want to know though, what do you guys think about this update? Have you been playing it on the experimental branch? Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to give a huge shout out to Mechanistry for sponsoring this video. Super cool of them to do that. I love playing Timberborn. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I want to thank you so much for your time today. There's a million things you could have been doing. You decided to hang out with me and play some Timberborn, which has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.